Voters in Mexico this month elected its first leftist president in decades, and the election could redefine the role of the government in areas such as economic development, trade, security, and energy. The election also could have a big impact on Mexico Insurers and the multinational companies that operate there as well. Here to discuss this is AM Best Director of Analytics, Alfonso Novelo, and Senior Financial Analyst, Eli Sanchez. And Alfonso, let's talk a little bit about NAFTA. Big issue there in Mexico. Set for renegotiation in the coming months. But what if there are marked changes to the program, or if it's not reauthorized at all? How could that impact insurers doing business in Mexico?
Well, as of now, I think the market is optimistic. I think that the large margin by which the elected president won the elections, the recent elections, has provided some benefits to the currency. I mean, the peso has gained some ground versus the US dollar after the election, so things seem to be calm as of this moment. I believe that the big concern with regards to the renegotiations of the NAFTA agreement will have some impact on the movement of the Mexican peso in the following months. As of now, we also believe that the insurance industry they are well prepared in order to face these challenges that could rise in the future. Basically because most of the insurance companies, they try to avoid to have mismatches in terms of currency for their assets and liabilities. And given that this is not their first rodeo, I mean, this kind of performance of the Mexican currency versus the US dollar, this has happened, something similar in previous elections. So some of the companies or the participants are having long positions in terms of the US dollar, and that could lead to some currency gains in the future. On the other hand, there are some negatives to this because you could see that some pressure in terms of inflation because of the devaluation of the Mexican currency, especially in terms of the prices of auto parts or medical supplies that are denominated in US dollars. So that could have a negative impact on the loss ratio of the companies, and it could hurt to some extent the bottom line results.
You mentioned the peso. It's been climbing, but inflation's been up as well. Do you think insurers in Mexico are positioned adequately to withstand these volatile economic swings?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not. I mean, even though there's been some increased pressure in inflation, it's nothing dramatic as of this moment. Maybe in the long term, if we were to see this trend to continue and get to levels that are not longer manageable, that will be a concern. But as of this time, the economic environment is more than. The insurance companies are used to this kind of environment and volatility in terms of the currency and inflation. So there's nothing that could affect or stable outlook on the insurance industry in Mexico.
Eli, are there existing contracts in place between the government and insurers that could be affected by the outcome of this election?
Yes, there are. One of the main proposals of the new government is to make the government efficient in terms of expenditures. As part of the proposals, it is to cancel the major medical expenses policy that they have with the federal employees. So that, with the numbers that are presented in the government plan, it's around 1.4% of the whole industry and around 7% of the medical expenses segment. Now, this is their estimate that they had for 2016. Now, for 2018, they think they can even save more money, around 7 billion pesos. It's an effect that it's going to be very focalized into certain participants. So it's not something that we foresee could harm the industry a lot, but for sure it's going to put certain pressure on those particular participants.
Now, part of the president-elect's agenda is for reallocation of public spending and also reduction in inequality. Are there opportunities here for insurers as a result of that?
Definitely. I think that some of the products, I mean, a reduction in inequality will lead ultimately to a better inclusion of the lower income segment of the population to financial services. So to that extent, the development of insurance products such as microinsurance, it's a window of opportunity for the current players in order to try to enter that segment of the economy. Also, in addition, you can see that the elected government is focusing a lot of efforts in order to go back to the agricultural production in the country, to be self-sufficient in a number of crops and production of certain items. So that could be another window of opportunity for the insurance sector, because what, at least for the agriculture insurance segment, I think that it's kind of limited for the number of participants that are interested in that line of business, because they don't have the risk appetite for that volatile performance of that segment. But definitely, it's something that could improve the level of penetration of the insurance sector in the economy.
Now, catastrophe risk is ever present in Mexico. Eli, how are insurers reacting on the heels of last year's earthquakes?
Well, at the time of the earthquakes, and this is important in Mexico, insurers, there's a catastrophe risk culture among them, so they are very well protected by their insurance programs. And we see those programs acting properly during the earthquakes. So right now, they remain well capitalized. The regulator has been supportive of them. We haven't seen any in distress. And furthermore, for those regions that are affected by the earthquakes or natural disasters, and in those areas especially where the participants, insurers don't participate, the government has put in place the catastrophic bond that was activated during Patricia hurricanes. And it's also participating in the Pacific Alliance with other governments in the region. So I think when you see the insurance segment in Mexico facing these catastrophic events, it's well prepared, and it's also supported by the programs set by the federal government.
Eli Sanchez, Alfonso Novelo, so glad you could join us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You can find the full briefing online at ambest.com. For AM Best TV, I'm John Weber.